Hello and welcome back to LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to share with you my study of Stroopwafel. Stroopwafel is basically like a Dutch biscuit, and I think I tried this a couple of times at Starbucks or somewhere. But basically, it's very simple, right? It's just like a rounded-looking food, like a wafer, and then it has this pattern, like a grid pattern. And yeah, it's very easy, right? But some of them has a little bit more interesting shapes. You can also take a look at biscuit or maybe like Oreo biscuit, and I want to be able to like make like a procedural Oreo, for example. But Stroopwafel for now. Just keep it simple. I have a couple of setup. Some of them actually I actually make it a little bit too complicated, but the easiest way, of course, is just like a basic grid, right? So you start with a grid and you simply cut it. You simply like want to trim it, because grid is like like a grid. It would be nice if we have like a nodes that's actually doing like a trimming curve with another curve, so we can make it like rounded. In this case, I'm actually using cylinder and doing mesh Boolean. That's pretty close. And then I did I did a bit of extrusion, 0.1, and then there's a bunch of geometry nodes. There's a bunch of modifier that's happening after this. So this one is just setting the material. But if we go each step, you can see I'm actually, from this grid and cylinder and mesh Boolean, I'm actually only extruding the edge. Okay, so that's one of the secret. And then I did a bevel and weld just to keep the mesh tidy and connected, joined together. Subdivision, we get like a kind of like a grid. It's not perfect. And then I did a mirror, so because I want to have the bottom part, and then I used remesh actually add imperfections. And I think for what I'm doing, I kind of like this, and I'm using a bit of adaptive remeshing, so we have this kind of imperfection, just looks like an actual Stroopwafel. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's just like it's a good start, I guess. And the rest of them is a bit weird, but what I'm really trying to do is I look at the Stroopwafel, and we know that it's like a grid, and then we just cut it out. So it's with that thing in mind. Okay, this one is really actually more interesting because it has this uneven edges. You can try studying this yourself and then try, this pattern is really interesting. If you can make the pattern and then you make like the dough, rounded dough, and you have like a something, so that's what I'm trying to do, the grid. And let me explain this one. Actually, these two are actually the same. I started with a grid on this one, and I started with a cone on this one, because this is a cone without depth. So we get like instead of like a cone, I get rid of the depth, and then I reduce it into just a simple lines by using delete geometry. What I did with delete geometry, if you look at the grid, normally grid have the outer part, the boundary, and here with delete geometry and edge neighbors, I tell them to get rid of the border. So we end up with just like a something like this. I'm getting rid of the outer part. Okay, so by doing that, and then I'm using a bunch of nodes here just to get the curve to look correct. Mesh to curve is separating each edges. Whatever there's edges and points is separating all the edges. and I did a bit of resampling, and then I scale the elements randomly, so there's a bit of randomization. Same with this guy. It's not perfect, but it's basically I work with the edges. We get some interesting pattern happening there. So this is without the scaling. I mean, if I keep the scaling the same number, we get that kind of like a crackers look. If I randomize the edge, we get different pattern. I don't know why, but it's yeah, but it's interesting. And then I use point to volume, volume to mesh. This is I think just the density of the voxelation. And I join the original geometry. So we have the shapes. So the shapes could be, I think for Stroopwafel is basically rounded shapes. And then I use subdivision, solidify, remesh. Probably don't need to do that, but it's still interesting just to remesh everything into a single object. So it is kind of like a Stroopwafel. This one is really weird. This one is really weird. I start with the grid. Again, I'm getting rid of the outer part. I'm using merge by distance. This one actually give you like a kind of like a fake Voronoi shapes. And then yeah, merge by distance give you triangulated, and then dual mesh give you like a Voronoi pattern. And then I'm separating all the edges. Get the curve, and I think I did something super crazy here. Separating all the edges. So we have just the outline pattern, and then extruding the edges. And I just use the subdivisions, and yeah, we get this kind of shape. It's not looking like anything like Stroopwafel, but with a remesh maybe. And at the end, just use assigned material. It's like a broken looking cookies or dough. Anyway, another method. There's always one more thing. Okay, I think this is as simple as it can get. Okay, so you draw something using a Bezier curve. And in this case, from the Bezier curve, I just simply bring it into geometry nodes. I resample the curve, and then I use curve circle. Okay, so we have these shapes, but we just want the inside part actually. So it's I'm using Sverchok nodes here, but in the future we might have this with geometry nodes anyway. So I get the curve data, intersect all the edges. We need that nodes in geometry nodes actually. And I'm using this planar HNet 2 polygon. This is very cool. Very cool nodes that does what it does is actually turning things into a single surface. And then I just use solidify thickness on top of it. I think planar HNet is something that's definitely needed. Look at this. So from the random doodles, it takes everything. It's getting rid of any edges that's outside. It's only keeping the one that's inside, and you have this face like a clean face. Almost okay. It's almost perfect. Let me try drawing this one more time. So curve, Bezier. So we have Bezier curve. Go to edit mode, and then gonna draw a grid. Oh, actually I should draw a circle. This is our waffle, and just draw a grid on top. It doesn't have to be like a grid. You can draw like a flower. So from this we can just grab it, And I think this is the result. Okay, kind of like a biscuit. From this, of course, we can use like a wireframe, things like that. It's the same method. This is probably the fastest way to do it, and you might just wanna remesh it or something. Same idea, but this is a little bit flat. So if I use geometry nodes and just apply this, we get the result. So combining this pattern and the solidified version, we have like a Stroopwafel. More or less, that's the idea. You just need to study the pattern, I guess, and then create the biscuit that way. I think Oreo is very similar, but yeah, I'm hoping that we will have these nodes inside geometry nodes, intersect edges and planar edge net, because sphere chalk currently is an add-on, but it's really cool add-on. I use that a lot. I use this add-on a lot, even today after so many years. So yeah, this is the result that I want to get with this. Of course, without the outer part, I want to get rid of the outer part. You can do that cleanly using sphere chalk and geometry nodes combined together. But yeah, that's basically what I want to create. Hopefully you find this useful. It's some of them seems really complicated, but in the end, you just want to have like a Stroopwafel. So maybe I'll try to make one myself from the supermarket. Just get the ingredients. Shouldn't be too hard. Alright, so thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.